Hi everyone, my name is Alexander. I'm using Electron for I think 7 or 8 months. I decided to try to do open source and I decided to do side project. It is called Electron. I decided to do some open source alternative for Alfred or Spotlight. So you can launch applications, calculate something or convert currencies, units. And I will talk about Electron.js that is used for build it. So what is Electron? Electron is a JavaScript framework, yet another, but not like React or Backbone or Angular. It is not rendering framework. It's a framework that helps you to get your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and convert it to desktop application. So you can build native cross-platform application with your web technologies. It started with Atom editor. So after some time, GitHub extracted framework and open sourced it, and it used to be called Atom Shell. After some time, a lot of other applications were built, and I think a lot of you used at least once application built with Electron, because it's Slack desktop client, Mail client, Nihilus, Visual Studio Code, Hyper, it's terminal emulator. And if you go to apps section on Electron website, you can find around 300 applications. So what is Electron? Inside, they just implemented easy idea. They just mixed Chromium and Node.js. So they took two open source technologies and made another one that you can use now for build desktop applications. How it works inside. When you launch Electron application, it starts main process that is plain Node.js process. From this, you can manage all your windows. Windows is a Chromium process. This Chromium process, they can't talk with each other, but they can talk with main process. And for example, you can use some simple architecture like main UI window and create some background window. It is not needed to be visible. It can be hidden. So you can do some tasks processing, I don't know, mining bitcoins on background, and you will still have fast response in your UI window. But when I say that it is Chromium, it's not true, because actually from this renderer process you have an access to both Node.js and Chrome APIs. So for example, you can do something like this. So you require Node package to get a file system, you read something and then use DOM. Actually, this presentation is running inside Electron, so we can run all these demos so we can see result of this code. Chromium or Electron is cool because you can use a lot of modern technologies. For example, with JavaScript, you already can use async and await functions, something like this, and it just works without any polyfills, without transpiling. So you can just open DevTools and run it. But I don't have an internet, but it works. So main advantages of using Electron. You're using latest web technologies. It can be modern JavaScript without any polyfills, you can use Webpack or not using it. You can use modern CSS like CSS variables, CSS grids, and you don't need to add polyfills, you don't need transpiling step. You can just use it out of the box. You know your target browser, so it is only one version of browser, and if it works for you, it will work for your user. Next thing, you use your usual environment because it's just Chrome. So for example, in your native web application or in your native desktop application, you can open developer tools. And so for example, you can do something like this just from your web tools. Cool thing that you still have an access to Node.js. So from your web tools, you can work with Node.js libraries. And you can use whatever you want. You can use any framework for rendering like React, Vue, Backbone, whatever. You can use any bundling system like Gulp, Webpack, Rollup, or whatever you want. You can use transpilers like Babel, or you can use plain JavaScript, but it still is more powerful than JavaScript in browser because you have at least models. and it's just JavaScript and NPM, so you have a model for almost everything. There are thousands of useful models. Okay, so what we can do using Electron, what we can use. Electron provides rich API for basic stuff in your desktop applications, like global shortcuts, tray menu, so this is tray menu, application menu like this one, audio, video. For example, you can open save dialog that you can do in Chrome, so you can select any destination and you can have an access to your displays. Now it's mirroring, so we have only one screen. We have an access to some platform-specific APIs. For example, for macOS, you can use UI things like vibrancy, so it's this filter, but it works only with macOS. You have all powerful of Node.js, and actually it have a lot of power because you have an access to file system, you can do whatever you want, you have an access to operational system, so you can get, for example, some user information, home directory, information about memory, CPU. You have an access to network and sockets, and last one is process management with child process model, and you have an unlimited power with it because you can do whatever you want. For example, you can run some bash script inside your Electron application. So actually we can run it right now and remove all my files, but we will just show uptime. So so we are running this script and we are showing uptime. Next thing that we can use, if we can run bash script, actually we can use any scripting language. For example, on macOS, Ruby, Python, and PHP, they're included out of the box. So you can run some Ruby script using your Electron application and get a result. Powerful thing on macOS is Apple script. So you can do some system stuff like go to screensaver, restart, shut down, something like this, or you can switch dark mode. So now my operation system in dark mode, but we can toggle it with this small script and toggle it back. But what if it is enough? It is not enough. If we want to go deeper? We have more power with some Node packages. For example, for macOS, we have a package called Node.js. Is a native bindings for Objective-C APIs in macOS. So this is an example of code. So it looks like you're writing Objective-C, but with syntax of Node.js. And it provides a lot of things. So you have access to calendar, to your contacts, to dictionary. So, for example, using this script, we can get an icon of any file in our system. So, for example, we can get icon of downloads, downloads folder, converted to base 64, and display it in our UI. We have almost the same thing, but for Windows, called Node.rt. It's a wrapper and provides a lot of things, the same like calendar, face analysis, wallet, a lot of things, but it is not plain thing. You have to build your package to get an access to these APIs, but there is already a huge list of already built packages that you can use. And if you want to find something more, already a lot of packages in NPM built only for desktop. So for example, I found useful this robot.js. So it helps to control mouse, keyboard, or you can get information about pixels on your screen. So for example, you can move your cursor. And if I run it, it is just moving my cursor on the screen. It looks promising and powerful, but of course we have to pay for everything. In case of Electron, we pay with two things. First one is the size. On this screenshot, you see size of files, packaged files for different platforms. So it's size of compressed installer, and problem here that each application includes Node.js and Chromium inside, And if you get just empty Electron application and you package .app file for macOS, it will be 100 megabytes already without any logic. Another thing that we pay with is the memory. So for example, several weeks ago, someone posted my application Cerebra to Hacker News. After some time, I decided to read comments, and a lot of comments were like this one. I decided to check how many times they say word memory, and it was 17 times in comments. And so if you just run empty Electron application again, without doing anything, it will be around 100 megabytes in your memory. So for example, this presentation wrapped in Electron, and you see it's nothing special, it's just presentation images and controls, and now it's using almost 200 megabytes. So it's just my opinion, but should I use it or no? If you just want to do an offline for your application, it is not enough, because, for example, in web you can use service workers, so you have full offline access to your application. If you need notifications, again, you can just use web-based notification system. If you need background tasks, it is also not enough. You can use web workers. There are a lot of web-based APIs, and it is not a reason to build 100 megabytes application for your user. And if you just want to do a desktop wrapper for your web application, it is also not enough, because you should provide some desktop experience. And another thing, I've seen several times that users just did Electron wrapper, so they just do an Electron and load application from remote URL, and it is not safe. For example, imagine if you have an XSS on your site, and if this XSS available only in web, hacker can get some private information about your user, but what if this site is wrapped inside Electron? They can do whatever they want on their computers, so they can use file system, read private information on users' computers, not only session. But when should I use Electron API? I think that it provides a lot of native things, like, so what was described, like global shortcuts, something like this. Also, when browser UI is not enough, for example, you need to do menu bar application with icon in tray, and you want to show it there, or you can have a window of custom shape, not just round, or not just corners. And what else? You want to add some filters, like I've shown with vibrancy. There are some links. Awesome Electron is a big GitHub repository. It contains a lot of links for Electron. There are a lot of cool applications, packages related to Electron, for example, for building, for auto-update, for everything. So you can find almost everything there. Electron/apps is a main repository of Electron-created apps. Next to my Twitter and link to Cerebra. And this presentation is available in two formats. One is Electron wrapped, and another one is just a web one. So, do you have any questions?
If you have questions, just raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Can you, for instance, don't bundle the Chromium and the Node.js if it's installed in the machine that you want to use that application?
No, it's always bundled inside application.
So there is no option to remove that?
No. I thought about, for example, if you want to do some background thing, but in this case you don't need a Chromium, but there is no way to cut functionality, so it's always bundled everything.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. I'm just interested, you mentioned memory problems. So are there any tools or what are the best practices? How can we fight them? What can we do to lower the memory leakage or whatever? What causes those memory?
You can follow some stuff, what you can do in Chrome, for example. You can profile your application, but it will be just problem of your application. But even with the empty Electron application, it gets 100 megabytes because it's just Chrome. So it's Chrome and not JS, and it's running, and that is what getting a lot of memory.
Okay, so Chrome basically just sucks the memory. Pretty much. Okay, thanks.
A lot of people say it's like this, yeah.
Is there any alternative to Electron if you want to build native applications with web?
Yes, there is one called NW.js. It used to be not WebKit. It's still alive and you can use it, but there are some differences. For example, in non-WebKit, it starts with just a web process. So you are opening like browser window and say to load this one URL. And with Electron, you have main process of Node, and you're managing all this stuff from your main process. Another thing in NW, if you want to have a Node.js inside your web process, you have to write some RPC functions to other process. So you have to start child process of Node.js and do it there. But in Electron, you can do everything in once. And another, so Electron was done by GitHub, and they have bigger community, more packages, more advantages. So there is an alternative, but I would use Electron. Because, for example, even memory usage, almost the same, but Electron provides more features. It's easy to build with Electron.
Hi. Do you think the existence of Electron has kind of made us, or makes it, made desktop applications a bit lazier, or that there's less focus has been set on desktop applications since we can kind of just cheat and go straight to making a web application run on desktop and kind of not focus on worrying about that? Or do you think Electron's a really positive alternative to having native applications?
So, am I right that you're asking that, can you repeat please?
So, do you think the existence of Electron has just made desktop apps a bit sucky?
In some cases, yeah, because it's easy to build desktop application when you know just JavaScript and HTML, and a lot of people do some really small applications that could be done on other languages, but they do it with Electron and some basic stuff, and it's already 100 megabytes in your memory. And yeah, Electron is just, they help users to do these kind of applications. But anyway, I think Electron is good because it's just starting, and maybe sometime later they will do some virtual machine like JVM, so you will have Node.js and Chromium process somewhere, and your application will be built on the top level of this thing.
I'm just curious, have you tried different technologies like React, Angular, and something like that for the rendering, if I understood? Does that depend on how much memory maybe is wasted?
You can use whatever you want, and yeah, so it will be just problems of your application. So you can use React, but it doesn't protect you from memory leaks. So you should write your application properly and check. For example, in Electron, you still have developer tools, and you can open memory profiling there or network timelines, and yeah, you can use whatever you want and just check where you have memory leaks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.